You sit down and build a life plan for where you want to be when you're 95, what you want to have achieved, and see if that includes a woman. See if that includes a wife. Does it include babies? Does it include, 3 girlfriends in bikinis? What does it include? What kind of woman are you looking for long term to build that structure and to build your legacy? Remember that you're co-creating a legacy together, and that she's going to facilitate that or take away from it and get in your way. So build that and see where she fits in. See where she'd actually enhance your life.
And so many men said, Robert, should I work on my stuff first? Should I work on my attachment issues first? Should I work on my nice guy? I go, yeah, do it while you're also interacting with people. Don't wait till you get your shit together. Now I'll go interact with people because it won't happen. It won't happen. You won't get to where, okay, I got it together. It's time. Interact now while you're doing your work. Adam, good to see you. Cool
Good
looking
to see you,
background
Dr.
you got
Glover.
there. You got a pretty sharp studio, great lighting, great sound.
Thank
Looking
you.
good.
My
Looking
team
good.
helped me. Just it's my office, but it's just a corner of the office that happens to look gorgeous. The rest of it is more comfortable.
That works. So I'm going to read your bio that you guys sent me just to give everybody an introduction to you. I've been introducing you on our timeline on our forum over the last week or so. So the guys are all prepped for you. And I don't know about you, but I hate listening to my bio be read. But I'm going to read your bio because it's a well-written bio. So this is Adam Lane Smith with an unwavering belief in the transformative power of secure attachment to help right many social ills facing the modern world. Adam has amassed a dedicated following of over 550,000 human beings, I assume, on social media. Together, they're rewriting the belief about how human connection is supposed to function. Adam teaches honesty, direct communication, clear boundaries, measurable levels of trust, and other means of building secure and healthy relationships. That sounds a lot like what I teach, a lot like No More Mr. Nice Guy. Drawing from his wealth of clinical experience and personal insight, Adam offers a unique perspective on the essential role of attachment in our lives. His engaging podcast episode on the I Wish You Knew podcast, and I've hung out with Adam and Andre just a few months ago in Phoenix, Arizona. We had a whole afternoon to chat on his podcast. That was so much fun. Online presentations during live streams and recorded video media have inspired individuals, couples, and families around the world to embrace the journey of repairing their relationships and fostering secure attachment. All right, so again, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. You've interviewed me at least twice, maybe more. I get to interview you, so I'm so excited about that. And I'm gonna just toss you a few softballs to get us started, and then I'll come with a little bit higher heat to just challenge you because I know you love to be challenged. So
Sounds good.
attachment style. It's a pretty hot internet social media topic, meme right now. Everybody is an armchair diagnostician these days. Everybody's diagnosing their ex, with either, borderline personality disorder, narcissism, sociopath. Everybody, I don't know that I've actually met all that many sociopath and narcissists, but if you believe the internet and social media, everybody's ex is in there. And everybody's talking about attachment and attachment styles. Now, I don't know if we get to blame you for that being such a hot topic, or thank you. But if you didn't start the conversation, you're definitely at the forefront of it. So tell me, how did you get attached to talking about attachment, to writing about it, to working with it? Give us a little bit of your story. What pulled you into this way of looking at relationships?
Well, good question. I actually blame you, to be honest with you, in a good way. I went through school. I got my master's degree in psychology, and in school, all they would tell us was, why do we have mental illness? Why does this exist? And they'd say, well, we don't know, but we think it's chemicals and we need drugs. And that was again and again, we kept getting the medical model. You have chemical problems, you need drugs. Well, is there anywhere else to do it? Well, we don't know. And this was the story over and over and over. And I wasn't satisfied with that. I hate that answer because I think it's a half-ass answer that just it doesn't solve the problem.
It
So
fit a really old medical model.
yes, it did. And if you want to sell a lot of prescription drugs, it works. But if you want to give men the tools to actually improve their lives, it doesn't work. It turns a man into an infant and says, you're helpless, take some meds for the rest of your life. So I was going through school, I got my master's degree, I was working on licensure, I had a supervisor, and I read I read No More Mr. Nice Guy, and it came from a men's group that I was in at the time, and it was a fitness men's group and a personal goal setting and stuff like that. And they said we got to read this book, and so I read it, and it just my brain like set on fire because you talked in there, you mentioned different ways of relating with people, the nice guy syndrome, and all of that. And I went and I said, well, wait a minute. And I looked at this old dusty thing they wouldn't talk to us about through grad school called attachment theory. They told it was just for babies. And I looked at No More Mr. Nice Guy and I looked at that old dusty theory no one would talk about. And I said, this is it. And this is the practical applications of it. And I remember I took your copy of your book and I went into my supervisor's desk and I slammed it on his desk and I said, why are we not working with people on these attachment things? And he had never read your book either. So that sparked it. And I started teaching about attachment at my clinic I was at, teaching the other clinicians, making them read your book. I think I handed out 10 copies of your book. I probably bought up half the copies in North America. But I handed out a ton of copies. And it started changing the way other people were doing things, which was good. They started looking at it. They started coming into my office asking me, okay, well, why do you think this person could be having this response? And so we'd go into their attachment pieces and talk about that. So it turned into such a big thing. I started talking about it online and talking about attachment and how people are relating to each other. And of all places, I went on TikTok. Other places listened, it was okay, but TikTok just lit on fire. I started getting millions and millions and millions of views years ago back on TikTok about my attachment styles and teaching people about attachment and teaching people about, how men and women bond different. And it just lit on fire. And so all of a sudden, after about a year of me doing that, all of a sudden everyone else on TikTok wanted to talk about attachment. And then all of a sudden the newspapers wanted to talk about attachment and
So
everyone wanted
we
to talk
do
about
get to
attachment.
blame you and TikTok
We
for.
get to blame you because if it wasn't for
Oh,
you and
okay,
nice
all
to more
right.
Mr. Nice Guy, this conversation wouldn't be happening either. So, you.
Well, I've told you this story. And I love that story too. I've actually heard that one before, so I've no problem hearing it again. You
Hmm.
know, I ran into you because about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I got an email from Michaela Peterson, wanted me to come on her podcast. And I go, I knew she was. I'd read 12 Rules for Life. So I
Hmm.
knew, Jordan talks about his kids and her medical issues. So I thought, why she invited me on her podcast. So I went and listened to a couple of her recent interviews, one with kind of like a gym owner in the UK. And then there's this other one about this guy named Adam Lane Smith. And I thought, isn't he like a former president or economist or some revolutionary or something like that? I'd heard the name before. And so I listened to it because it's about attachment. I go, well, that sounds interesting. And so I'm lying on my bed on a Sunday afternoon listening to Michaela talk to you. Got about halfway through, and I won't quote you exactly, but close enough. You said there's like only one person over here in America talking about attachment, and you go, and he's a fucking genius. And it's Dr. Robert Glover, and he wrote this book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. And I'm going, now I know why Michaela invited me to come on her program. And I turned off the interview and thought, that's all I need to hear. And I just kind of laid on my bed and just kind of basked in the fucking genius. And I thought, okay. And here's the thing about it. I've read the book Attachment. I think I understand the concepts. I had never related No More Mr. Nice Guy to being about attachment. And you woke me up to what I've been writing about attachment. I didn't call it that. I didn't know to call it that. And as soon as you said it, I thought, holy shit, he's right. It really is. Around nice guys, we do struggle to have a healthy attachment style. So just, give us the elevator speech. What is attachment and how do attachment styles tend to develop and why that's important? Just kind
Hmm.
of, tee that up for us.
Yeah. So our brains are learning computers, and they learn best through pain and suffering, unfortunately. So when you are very first born, your brain is trying to learn, do I live in an environment where people are going to help me and be friendly and kind and warm and happy? Or am I living in an environment where I got to fight for survival? Every scrap is hard earned, or where people are going to abandon me, and it's hard pressed kind of survival situation. And if your brain learns through pain that your parents don't have time for you, don't seem to like you, they throw you in your crib and make you cry it out for the first 2 months. If you go in the NICU and you're alone and isolated in a container for a month or two, if you're thrown into daycare way too early, your parents abuse you, they just abandon you, they don't talk to you, mom is too depressed to interact with you, stuff like that. If your brain somehow learns in an irrational way as a little baby that people don't care about me, I'm not important, I'm not loved, or other people are hurtful or mean or arbitrary, then it breaks the way that we connect to other human beings, and it changes our brain chemistry, changes our receptors for various hormones, changes all kinds of things. If you blame yourself as a little baby, you get oxytocin bonding, and then it's taken away. And you get the warm bonding and snuggles, and it's taken away. And you get it, and it's taken away. You develop a learned helplessness model where you say something is causing me to be loved and then unloved and loved and unloved, and it must be me. I must be bad. And so we develop anxious attachment style. Nice guy syndrome is anxious attachment style. Of I crave that oxytocin bonding hormone of approval. I need to feel safe. I need someone to approve of me. I'm not good enough. There's something unlovable about me on the inside. Everyone else can see it, but I can't. I got to do nice things so that people will pity me enough to meet my needs, but I can't ask for my needs. Everything inside No More Mr. Nice Guy that you articulated perfectly in there.
Yeah.
Um, Everything in there is nice guy is no is anxious attachment style. We can develop the opposite, avoidant attachment style, which says there's something wrong with everyone else, I can't trust them. It actually blocks your receptor sites for oxytocin, so you can't oxytocin bond. Men and women can both get this. You become very, very lone wolf, independent, hardcore. You're not a nice guy. You can have fake nice tendencies, but it's not the approval seeking. It's not the submissiveness or the cravings or any of that. These are the hard driving business guys who don't have any time for their girlfriend or their family, and they take everything they can, kind of thing, as necessary. Much different. And you can give me a blend of the two. You can be anxious and avoidant if you got hurt enough. So that's just kind of the eagle's view of attachment. So usually guys in here, probably what you're dealing with more is anxious attachment.
Anxious attachment. Would you say in general that that is more of an avoidant anxious attachment or a pursuant enmeshing anxious? Because can't anxious attachment go both ways?
Anxious attach, yeah, it's weird. It's weird, and it depends who you talk to about if it was
Okay.
Bowlby or Ainsworth. Yeah, yeah. My business partner Andre, he says attachment theory is cool. It has the worst names and the worst setup and the worst PR in the world, so it's hard to even remember. So that's why No More Mr. Nice Guy, you updated it. You did such a huge expansion for it, so people could actually grasp it. We needed that. So yes, anxious can be, it could be helplessness. It could be the guy who pulls away, who is just alone and isolated. He can't get a girlfriend, can't get friends. He's more alone, but he feels like it's his fault. That collapse inward. Or he could be kind of outgoing, but always craving that connection and always craving that approval. Gets friend zoned a lot. People don't seem to respect him. He doesn't really respect himself. So it can look like a lot of different things.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. When something can look like a lot of different things, oh, like quantum physics, or like it can be almost anything.
100%.
Um, from your book, I just picked up your book a month or so ago. Slay. Yeah, I know you've written several. I read, Write Like a Beast. Was that the name of it?
Hmm. Yes.
A while back. And but slaying your fear. Um, I really liked it because, you know, I don't know that I've ever read a book that clearly talked about personal insecurity to the degree of just the inner critic.
Mm,
that I see so many nice guys have that, I'm worthless, I'm unlovable, I'm not good enough, that kind of like maybe leads to, I just bumped into a few months ago this whole kind of black pill mentality. You can't get a woman unless you have status, looks, and money. So why should I even try?
yeah.
And so it is like this harsh inner critic that causes us to close down or overcompensate and try to win love and win approval. But in your book, Slaying Your Fear, I have a quote, and it says, attachment styles form as a result of the young mind trying to understand one thing. Will I be loved for who I am, or do I have to earn love? And that really is, of course, the covert contracts of the nice guy syndrome. I've got to give to get. In the men's program I've been in with my coach John Wineland, he teaches something work I've done several times. I've been in the program for several years around what he calls occurring world. What is our deepest inner emotional belief about self and the world, how the world is for us? And my occurring world, it didn't take me long to really name it, was I have to put up with shit to get love.
Mm,
When you were talking about that, get that moment, oxytocin taken away. Got a good moment, taken away. And it's all that taking away. That's what I just have to put up with to get some of those close moments. And we've worked to shift our occurring world inner belief. And mine has evolved to be love rains down on me,
mm,
or I'm swimming in a sea of love. And the more I've been working on that for about 5 years around that mantra. And it is interesting, the more I shift that mantra while doing other work, I really do see how love does just wash over me. Now, I wouldn't have seen that in the past. I would have thought, no, I got to go work really hard to get it, which of course that's an attachment issue. I posted a quote on our timeline today from another quote from the book. And it was interesting that somebody, I'll read the quote and then I'll say what a person responded to and what my response was. You write, a person with healthy attachment believes love is freely given instead of earned. There's one. That others love them for who they are. There's two. That people will continue to love them even in their absence. There's three. And that love cannot be casually destroyed. Four key parts there. And I posted that, and somebody responded, I said, he said that fourth line, love cannot be casually destroyed. He said, I can't even conceive of that. Like that's a Twilight Zone kind of thing. And I'm thinking, I can't conceive of all four of those. All four of those are so foreign to my emotional wiring, my course, nice guy wiring. So I don't believe the love's freely given. I have to give to get. I have to earn it. I got to be good enough. That others love me for who I am? No, they love me for what I do for them. Right? That people will continue to love me even in their absence? No, if somebody leaves or goes away, they're going to forget about me. They're going to go love somebody else. That had to be my mother. I was, second of four kids, and my mother just kept moving the hose from one child to the next to suck the emotional the emotional being out of them, and that love cannot be casually destroyed. I tell you what, all it takes is my wife to get a frown on her face, and I'm thinking, I'm in trouble. She doesn't love me anymore. My beliefs throughout life has been it goes away that easy. And that's why I've always thought I got to fix everything right now. It goes away that easy. So that quote is just so amazing because if nothing else, even if it seems like, wow, what world is that? It is actually something to start integrating in that that's what it looks like to have healthy attachment. Now, in the book, Attachment, and you and I've talked a little bit about this, they quote that they think like 50% of people have healthy attachment style. Now,
mm.
as a marriage and family therapist for years, maybe I have a skewed population, and maybe working with nice guys, I have a skewed population. I would put at most 5 to 10% of population has healthy attachment style. That's me. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think it is as high
Yeah.
as 50%, or is
No.
that being generous?
No, 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 no. The research is sparse since Bowlby died back in the 90s. They've stopped doing a lot of research on attachment, unfortunately. But the research that has been done, it says that maybe 50% of millennials, especially older millennials, might be securely attached. Maybe. But they're showing that in Gen Z, it's maximum, maybe 35% are securely attached if we really want to be optimistic. They're showing that personality disorders have risen to about 15 or 20% of the population. And those are the most extreme edition of attachment problems. So I would probably say maximum 25% of the population probably is securely attached, and that's pushing it.
Okay, that's
That's
pushing
you're
it.
you're going outside of major cities to get that. New York City is not going to be that. Los Angeles is not going to be that. Miami's not going to be 25%. You're if you cluster in all the rural areas where they might have healthier families and stuff like that, maybe you can get to 25% for America.
Okay. Okay. Depend on the demographic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I I did a live stream with Whole Math last night, and I know you recently did because I watched it. And you mentioned this about baby boomers and Gen
Mhm.
Z on the spectrum there of healthy attachment. You also talked about personality disorders going up, especially in women. That'd be a fun subject, but I think maybe we'll save that for another call. Um, why do you think that is? Why, as we've gone from I'm tail end of baby boomer. I missed out on all the summer of love and the drugs and the free sex
That's
and
why I like you so much. You're one of the
I
good boomers. That's why.
I,
That's why.
I was a fundamental Christian going to a
There we
Christian
go.
college where I would get kicked out of school if I had sex or drank. So I missed all of that. And so what's changed so dramatically as we get, from people, I'm 69, let's get down to somebody that's 19, 25.
Mhm.
What's changed so dramatically that is so much more avoidant?
Yeah, over the last 100 years, it's got worse and worse. So we're supposed to have five safety nets that build secure connection. One is our core family, the parents, our siblings, grandparents, and the immediate circle around us. The next is the extended family system, all your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, everybody around you. The next is, and we call that the kith and kin network. After that comes your religious community, your identity. If you're a Christian, if you're a Buddhist, if you're a Muslim, whatever it might be, your religious community is supposed to be a larger network. Next after that is your tribal idea, your tribe, the larger neighborhood, your village sort of structure that you're in, right? Hunter gatherers, they had maximum. Your brain is capable of carrying about 150 people maximum. You should be in a hunter gatherer tribe of about 20 to 30 people. About four other tribes would be about 100 to 150 people. So you got four tribes interplaying, intermarrying. This is a pretty common structure for hunter gatherers. This is where our brain is for. And then on top of that, you have your larger cultural identity that's supposed to be connected and bonded, that you can connect with other people and build that connection. And all of these things have been absolutely destroyed over the last 100 years, worse and worse and worse, to the point now that a child is born, they're probably thrown into daycare pretty quick. If they didn't go into the NICU for being born to a mom who's older, so then the baby has baby complications, born premature, put in the NICU, then put into early daycare. Mom is anxious and stressed out and depressed anyway. They're probably split up and not married as parents, so that he's going back and forth between different households. He's massively stressed out because of all this. His sympathetic nervous system goes into maximum overload. Sympathetic nervous system acts, what it does is block your oxytocin receptors. So even if you're trying to get love and intimacy, it's going to be really hard. You're not going to receive it very well. If
And for
mom is
those of the
anxious,
for people that don't know that term, that's fight,
oh yeah,
flight, freeze when
fight,
we're in
flight,
sympathy.
sympathetic fight,
Yeah.
flight. And when that's beaten out of you, then it's fawn and freeze. And this is where nice guys a lot of times go, is fawn and
Yeah.
freeze.
Yeah.
Avoidant people at least still have fight or flight. It hasn't been beaten out of them yet. The learned helplessness beats that first level out. Now you've got second level of fight, of fawn and freeze. So your reactions are even worse than before. You're trapped. So you're chronically activated in sympathetic nervous system. A lot of young people today are just massively flooded with cortisol, because if your sympathetic nervous system is up, oxytocin receptors are blocked. You don't have social connection. It's hard to talk to people. You can't get the intimacy you need, the hugs, the snuggles, the love, the talks, the communication, the father to son talking and bonding that's supposed to be happening daily. the rites of passage, everything that assures you that you are part of a loved collective and group. You don't get that, so you're alone and isolated because your oxytocin is low, your GABA is low. GABA is that inhibitory neurotransmitter. It shuts down cortisol, so now your cortisol is just unregulated like this all day long, doing whatever it wants, and then because
And
of
and
that, you're
cortisol's good if you need to get something done, or if you
correct.
need to run, if you need to fight,
Yes,
if you need to wake up
yes.
in the morning, we need it. If you did, but we don't need it activated like there's a
All
hungry
the time.
tiger behind us
No, no.
24/7.
Because long term, short term, it amps up your testosterone and your adrenaline, but long term, it tanks your testosterone. It tanks your human growth hormones. You can't gain muscles or keep muscles that way. It tanks your immune system, so you're more prone to sicknesses. You're also more prone to autoimmune disorders. It tanks your all of your body's regenerative system, so you're at more risk for heart disease, stroke, cancer. All of those things go way up. So we see a lot of early cancers in this group. You are at massive risk of depression and anxiety because your serotonin levels don't regenerate at night because you're in your sympathetic, not your parasympathetic, your calm, rest, and digest mode. You are chronically activated in that mode. And then you have insomnia because you're not generating GABA, which then takes magnesium and generates melatonin. So you're not sleeping at night. So a lot of these guys are self medicating to sleep. They're barely refreshing during the night. They're running on fumes every single day. Their bodies are wearing down. They're stressed out and exhausted during the day. And here's the killer. We men, we have more receptors for the bonding hormone vasopressin, more receptors than women do on purpose. Because when we solve
But but
stress
not but
together,
not oxytocin.
not oxytocin. I don't think we have as many receptor sites for oxytocin. We get it, but not as many as women do. Because oxytocin in the mammal code, it helps you lactate, it helps uterine contractions, it helps all kinds of things. We have some, but not as many. We
Right.
have more vasopressin, which is solve stressful things together. Two men, Dr. Glover, you and I, we go hunt the mammoth, and he's about to trample us. You jump on his back and spear him. I stab him in the neck. Oh, we did it. Our brains recognize you helped me during stress. I should keep you around more. We are allies. And then that initiates deeper bonding for us. This is why male rites of passage are more violent, more fearful, and stress inducing. And then we resolve the stress together and form a brotherhood. You guys in here are solving problems together. You are vasopressin bonding. It is specific for men. We need that. That's what this is. That is the core concept of brotherhood is vasopressin, that hormone. Men who are terrified to open up with others, men who have no one to connect with, men who are not initiated into that kind of bonding through their fathers and uncles, men who do not have any other men they can speak to. They are shut off and isolated. It's like one little data node and it's isolated from the entire network, alone in a closet, blinking, trying to solve problems alone, can never get data or solutions from anybody. That's a man with these issues. So he won't vasopressin bond, oxytocin bond, low GABA, low melatonin, low serotonin, low testosterone, low human growth hormone, and horrible quality of life. And he's probably going to get cancer when he's 45, 55, somewhere in there, or die of a heart attack. This is why a lot of these men die at 55 with heart attacks and stuff. You lose the last years of your life, and it's a bad death. So
Hmm.
fixing it is absolutely critical, and our whole society is facing this right now.
Oh, wow. All right, that was just amazing. I never heard male bonding described quite that way with that hormonal bonding. That's beautiful. Thank you. All right. So if I've heard you correct in other places, you say that men are generally more avoidant, and maybe that's evolutionary because we were out with the guys, not hanging around with the women, trying to get their approval. And then women are more seeking attachment, and again, maybe for for security to be, they seek to be provided for and protected. But here's the thing. I mean, logically, that makes sense to me. But I've worked, as again, I got my first degree in marriage and family therapy over 40 years ago. So I've seen a lot of couples. I've worked with a lot of men. And when I first started my work as a marriage and family therapist, kind of the typical meme was it was the women dragging the men into therapy. The men are kicking and screaming. Why do I have to go to a marriage therapist? By the time I left private practice, after 25 plus years of that, it was the men dragging the women into therapy. And the women are kicking and screaming, I don't have to go to therapy. You're the problem. And so, honestly, I see hordes of men out there seeking connection, wanting connection, And when they don't either seem to have the skill sets or the knowledge or the access to get it, then they go towards the incel MGTOW. It's women's fault. They're all hypergamous, all that. And so I actually see a pattern where men are wanting connection and can't get it. And I see kind of theoretically women, oh, yes, of course I want relationship and connection. And I see them fucking running from it. My view of having now been married 3 times and having several relationships in my lifetime and doing a lot of work with couples, it seems to me that most women, even though they say, I want relationship, I want a man, I want this, they keep their running shoes tied. Though I've had so many women say, "You're the most amazing man I've ever met. I'm so grateful I met you. I'm just so blah blah," and then they ghost me. Never hear from them again. So how do we make this stuff make sense that we got men who we say are avoidant but go, I can't find a woman, and we got
Yeah.
women that say, I just want a man, and they're either got their tennis shoes laced up running from any good man that wants them, and or I'll just add an extra piece, running towards the unavailable men, the
Mhm.
avoidant men.
Mhm.
What's happening with that?
I love this question. No, I love this question because I've been wondering if our data is out of date, exactly like you're talking about. I think that when Bowlby created all this back in the 60s, when he discovered attachment and talked about it, I think that back then men were probably tending more toward avoidance because what attachment is, it's a survival program that kicks on.
Sure.
Hey, a disaster befalls our society. People are too stressed out to connect. Men are gonna become more avoidant and less emotional. Women will become more approval seeking. We will put our society back together, and then the kids will be healthier through the generations, and society will eventually heal. That's what it's supposed to be. It's a short-term survival strategy for a couple generations. Ours has been 100 years, and here's what I think is skewed. I think that we started off, World War One, Great Depression, Dust Bowl, World War Two, Cold War, and then we got snagged. And I think the Soviet Union tried to build their own culture over here. The CIA jumped in and started trying to build and engineer a new American culture based around modern art, based around anything and American exceptionalism and all these things. And we tried to foster a false sort of culture. And then at the same time, family courts for moms, single moms, freedom, total absolute freedom became our cry. And a lot of women jumped in, and now we've got massive broken families. All the men were dead. The women didn't know how to connect to men anyway. Then they started shredding a lot of marriages. Then the government got involved and started protecting and encouraging that, some might say. So I think that what has happened is initially, yes, probably back in the 60s, 50s, 60s, men were more avoidant, women were more anxious. Over time, we've got generations of men raised by women in a kindergarten type society of approval and social standing is everything. Moms stepped in and gave love when they felt like it and then pulled back, or they were work moms or NICU moms. They fell for have a baby when you're 45, it'll be fine. Baby is premature, baby goes to NICU, dude is now like anxious and stressed out. The daycare thing is destroying us. So we're craving female approval more than we normally would in any other society on earth.
and
American
and
men are
and
trained.
no masculine initiation to break that
Gone.
cycle.
No, they're gone. We have no concept of what a masculine initiation or connection or brotherhood or fatherhood or anything would even look like. If you ask most men, you ask them, what does honor mean? What does brotherhood mean? What does masculinity mean? They just look at you. They're
What
afraid to even answer because they're afraid
what
they're
does
going to get punished for
what does
answering.
mastery mean? What does mastery mean?
They have no idea. They're
So so
scared to
you
even answer.
so you think this has maybe flipped at least
I, I
to
think
some
I think
degree?
it's social. I think it's. I don't know that it's purposeful, but I think it's a consequence of the government getting involved and propping up the wrong things artificially. I think we're in an artificial bubble where the women are avoidant because they're afraid of men, and they've got generations of women saying, "Don't trust men. They'll let you down. They'll die. They'll give up on you. They'll burn out. They'll leave." So they've got generations of female terror that has taught them to hate and fear men. for a variety of reasons. And then you've got men raised multiple generations to crave female approval as a measure of safety and status. And I think that has inverted the natural order. Men are approval seeking and
Yeah.
oxytocin addicts. Women are avoidant now and terrified of intimacy. I think that's what we're seeing. So I think
Uh,
you're very right.
that's a good answer. And one thing I've seen that I've seen this in so many men that a lot of men come do their nice guy work when their relationships are struggling. Either they can't get in one, they can't talk to women, they've never been laid, or they can't stay in for more than 3 months, or they can't find a good woman, or the relationship's breaking up, marriage is ending in divorce. And that's often when they go looking for answers. And a pattern I've seen, and I don't necessarily want to dive into this, but I think it relates to what you're saying here is that so many men now measure their self-worth as a man, as a human, on their relationship history and status. Oh, because can't talk to women, or I've never had a girlfriend, or I've never had sex, or because I've had, I can't have a relationship for more than 6 months, or I've been divorced 3 times, or what. And it's like that's determining our worth as a human being of our ability to navigate the capriciousness of the feminine and attract good partners, stay with good partners. And I mean, that's difficult for everybody nowadays. We just don't have the systems to do it. And men are walking around going, I'm just not lovable because I can't get a girlfriend. Well, what does you having a girlfriend have to do with your lovableness as a human being? So that is a piece I'm trying to intervene with men to say, let's disconnect our sense of value from our relationship history and our ability to attract or keep a woman, or at least one that we find attractive and keepable. So I want to ask one more question. Then I'm going to turn this over to the guys. Now, I I really want this discussion to involve, okay, what do we do? Right? How do we do some things different? And I'm hoping the guys' questions will give a lot of chance for you to give, practical
Mhm.
responses of what can we do different rather than how did we get here and how did it happen, which is good information. But I do want to ask one other question, just because I'm curious. Um, what are your thoughts about pornography in terms of men, watching pornography, and especially around this thing, or no, excuse me, back. That's not the one I want. I want to ask about casual sex. What are your thoughts about casual sex? I'll interrupt. And the obsession now in the manosphere, especially red pill, with body count. For a while, it was a woman's body count. It was proof if she had a high body count that she can't, really get in or commit. And I think a lot of that came out of just men's insecurities that, oh, this woman's had sex with more men, she's going to be judging me and I'll come up short. And I'm insecure.
Mhm.
Now I see like messages about even men's body counts, that a high body count is even bad in men, which that goes contrary to, everything I've heard since I was a little kid. We got, I'm the 90-pound weakling. I got to get buffed up so I can get the women. So what are your thoughts just briefly about casual sex? Is it good or bad for men and women? And what's this obsession with body count?
I will be unpopular in that I think that just truly casual sex, I think, is not a good thing. I don't think it's good for men or women. I think that the people who dive into casual sex, it's usually a dopamine binge, is what it is. It's a raw dopamine experience. And if someone is chasing dopamine, what that usually means is that their cortisol is high and unregulated. It means they're in their sympathetic nervous system. We see this, for example, in the medical profession with doctors and nurses absolutely banging each other's brains out in the closets and in the waiting rooms, and not waiting rooms, but
Uh,
the staff
but,
rooms.
but pilots and flight attendants too.
Pilots, flight attendants, high levels of stress. You need to cool the nuclear reactor, and the only way you know how, and you don't know how to do that through a relationship, and you don't know how to regulate it through GABA. So instead, you go to dopamine. That's usually what casual sex is. Now, do I think it's absolutely foreign to the human? No, like the animals do casual sex and stuff like that too. I don't think that it's like, oh, this is abnormal, but I don't think it's the best approach typically for a reason, for a number of biological reasons. Number one is it's really, really bad for women, and men who care about women usually don't want to do things that are harmful to women. So biologically speaking, if a man can get away with casual sex, it's one thing. I will say that men who are chasing casual sex, usually it's because they want the dopamine hit and they want approval from women. Whether they are anxiously attached, look how many women I can have sex with. It's a validation thing because they're not usually. Casual sex is not the same woman over and over. That's more like a relationship or a situationship. But if it's endless casual sex of I need a new woman every night, something's off with that guy's brain chemistry. Just honestly.
Right.
Um, it's not what we are biologically designed for, unless society has collapsed and you got one guy with 100 women and he has to rebuild the society. Then his bonding chemicals will turn off. He will impregnate as many as he can, and will let the future generations figure out family structures again. That's usually how that looks. So, just typically speaking, casual sex is not the best thing for our brains or our systems. There's usually a reason for it. Pornography, similar answer. It's a dopamine binge. I think it pulls men away from what they could be doing. I think that using porn once in a while, looking at it is one thing, but a lot of guys are leaning into it. It's a daily activity for them. It's a coping mechanism to release things that are actually there. You're supposed to be having urgency to go have sex with a partner, which should lead you into a healthier long-term relationship, most likely. These are natural urges. They
Mhm.
can be used properly instead of just dopamine binging. Again, it's not like if you've ever looked at porn, you're evil. No, but
Yeah.
okay, are you maybe wasting your efforts? Are you maybe wasting what is naturally supposed to be there? Are you just dopamine binging and then what? And then what? You sit there for the rest of the day. You're just going to lead into another dopamine binge later. I have seen a connection between sugar use and porn, where if you have too much sugar in the morning, as you sugar crash and your dopamine and everything crashes in the afternoon, you're more likely to need porn in the afternoon and evening. And then you're just like, well, I'm just horny. It's no big deal. But it's actually that dopamine cycle linked to the sugar consumption, then the processed foods and things like that. So we're definitely a dopamine saturated society that is coping for all the missing
Yeah.
relationships. So
Yeah.
that's what I think. Does
A
that help?
dopamine saturate. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good. Thank you for that. All right, let's open this up for the guys. And as usual, we're going to do a timer and give everybody 3 minutes. Now, the 3 minutes is you ask, and hopefully Adam can finish answering it within 3 minutes. That means
I'll try.
get to the point quickly. A bunch of hands are up, so let's just dive in.
We're going to make it real fast. So the reason that they can't oxytocin bond is their sympathetic nervous system is activated all the time. So they don't know how to come out of that. Avoidant men usually are desperate, like for the gym. They do like 2 hour workouts 5 days a week, and they can't live if they don't. They're scraping the bottom of the barrel for serotonin, and they're trying to bring their nervous system down. What they need to do is build a few relationship structures with men, family members, friends, whoever they can, that all the expectations are clear and on the table. They never have to play guessing games. There's no walking on eggshells, and they're not afraid that someone's about to come at them and cause a big problem. That allows your sympathetic nervous system to deactivate and go to fully calm. Your oxytocin receptors open up. This is where you can have deeper conversations with people. If you have a partner, you can snuggle, hold hands, talk through about your day. This is why emotional exchanges are useful for oxytocin bonding in particular. I have a video on my channel, on my YouTube channel, called How to Fix an Avoidant with Sex. And I talk in there about the mechanisms that you women can use during sex to vasopressin bond with you by setting goals during sex to do things and have activities. Your nervous system comes down. If she is touching your face, rubbing her calves on you, holding you, and touching your body in ways that during intercourse that is not just like genital to genital, but full stimulation, that can initiate oxytocin bond for you as well. And then after sex, laying your head on her chest releases overwhelming oxytocin for her, but also for you. You're designed to initiate oxytocin bonding when your head is on a woman's chest, but only if your sympathetic nervous system is down. If it's up, all that will be blocked. So you need to bring that down with that person and be fully at rest in their presence as you trust them. That's the process. Does that make sense? Whole life structure. So the research shows that if we only attach and connect to one person, that oxytocin bond actually makes us worse because we are now hyper fixated on it and obsessive over it. So a lot of people have one person they try to bond to. There's papers from Dr. Sue Carter about this if you ever want to research it. She's the second level genius in the world compared to Dr. Glover for attachment and bonding. And I mean that. What you need to do is pick two or three people, the lowest hanging fruit in your life. People that are trustworthy, who live to their principles and their goals. They're predictable in a good way, honorable people. People who will at least listen to you and who will at least reciprocate with you. They're not out to take from you. Okay. They'll have a conversation with you. You go to these people, two or three low hanging fruit, and you say, hey, I have a tendency for overthinking, for people pleasing, and I hate it. And I never want to do it again. And I don't want to do it with you. So here's what I want us to do. If you see me doing these things, please just gently call me on it and I will fix it. I'm doing this for accountability. This is what I need from you because I want to give you my best in these relationships. And as you expose yourself to these people, your cortisol goes massively up, but as they accept you, they'll say, hey, I already know this about you, but that's fine. I'm happy to talk to you about that. You will flood with oxytocin, you'll flood with serotonin, you'll feel drunk on the spot, and then you'll start feeling more positively and more accepted because you've given away your tells, so you can't hide anymore. You need this in a diversified oxytocin portfolio so that you don't be afraid and your brain doesn't think it's a fluke. As you have this with two, three people, you can do it with closer relationships, with a partner, with people where it's higher stress and higher hanging fruit. It will get easier as your biochemistry improves. It's really just a stacking process and a desensitization process. Stack the brain chemistry, prove it's not a fluke, desensitize to the fears. As you do this across the board, everything will improve. It doesn't have to be 50 conversations with three people. It can be two conversations with 50 people. Diversify, and you're going to see a huge growth. Even if you want it, you've deprioritized it to some extent. We need to increase some urgency for you. So I'd recommend is that you sit down and build a life plan for where you want to be when you're 95, what you want to have achieved, and see if that includes a woman. See if that includes a wife. Does it include babies? Does it include, three girlfriends in bikinis? What does it include? What kind of woman are you looking for long term to build that structure and to build your legacy? Remember that you're co-creating a legacy together and that she's going to facilitate that or take away from it and get in your way. So build that and see where she fits in. See where she'd actually enhance your life. That would be a huge piece because that creates some urgency and motivation. It will also help you clarify what kind of woman you're looking for and then how you need to engage with her and the characteristics she has to have. Don't fall into a checklist structure that she has to be perfect for this position, but do build a pattern where there's higher urgency, but also a specific focus on the type of woman or the quality of woman you're really seeking. That should help, and that will narrow things down quite a lot for you and also help you push through the any hesitance you have. Yeah.
And so many men said, "Tell me, Robert, should I work on my stuff first? Should I work on my attachment issues first? Should I work on my nice guy?" I go, "Yeah, do it while you're also interacting with people. Don't
Mhm.
wait till you get your shit together. Now I'll go interact with people because it won't happen. It won't happen. You won't get to where, okay, I got it together. It's time. Interact now while you're doing your work."
So, if we want to look biologically at the role of the masculine, why it exists, we could make the argument that the masculine exists to provide safety and structure for the feminine to then propagate and continue the species. So, our role is to be on the outside providing safety and support so that their sympathetic nervous systems are very rarely, if ever, activated. Our job is to be on the outside, chronically spiking up and then coming down and up and down. That's our job. When women do that on the outside, they call it being in their masculine, and they resent the man in their life for not allowing them to stay calm and parasympathetic as much as possible. Now, with her job, it's going to be difficult. She's going to be out there, but when she's in the domestic sphere, you need to be making sure that she is as parasympathetic as possible, even if that means you have to step up and down into your sympathetic. That means emotional discipline so that you don't have emotional spikes, good or negative, where you're not like overly emotional and crying or probably you're not, but anxious, approval seeking, worried, jittery. If you're doing that in the home, then that's sending a message that you're not emotionally calm. She has to step into emotional calm to provide that safety and stability. The calmer and more disciplined you are, the better. That also means you are non-reactive. You don't react to anything in your environment. A masculine man, responds to things. He doesn't react. A reaction is driven by instinctive fear in the sympathetic system. A parasympathetic man observes, has the stimulation, centers, listens to it, takes out the information he needs, and then chooses how to respond. So that's the other piece. Providing that vision to her and then helping unify toward that is also helpful. And the last piece is helping her to feel safe by helping all of that helps her come out of her sympathetic nervous system. She can rest with you and enhance her oxytocin bonding. That will flood her system and you will see her become more feminine. The way you can start doing this is not say, hey, I heard a talk from Adam and you're going to have cancer. It's, hey, I want to provide more safety and stability in the home for you. Where am I currently failing to do that? Please give me that information. And then I'm going to go to my men and I'm going to build myself to be the man who provides safety and stability for you. Give me the information, give me my failings. I will improve them. And then you continuously improve them and grow. She will lean into you. It's a natural biological process. You will be masculine in the home. She will be masculine at work, but feminine in the domestic. That's what you need to start doing. If you want to talk to her about cancer and all that stuff, you can, but she probably instinctively knows she doesn't want to be masculine in the home, and she'll resent you if she has to be.
All right, great question, because that is such a thing when women coming home in their masculine, and how do we lead them back into their feminine? I do believe that's the job most of us men are failing at in our relationships, is how to lead our woman back into her feminine. Good answer.
The short answer is ask each other more questions from a curious perspective earlier in the conversation. Most people walk in and say, you did this, I didn't like it, you're not going to do it again. And that immediately blows up into a fight. That's how it's received. Even if you don't mean to say it that way, it comes across that way. Remember that conflict, any conflict, you walk in, conflict, people think it's immediately confrontation. It's not. Conflict is a question. Are our goals opposed to each other? And if they are, do we have to fight about it or can we work on this? Okay. You walk into a conflict, you need to ask those questions. What are your goals? What were your actual goals? It looks like they're opposed, but what was actually going on here? Tell me your side first. I tell people front load with context. Hey, something's going on, but I don't want us to break up over it. I want us to fix it. Here's really quick 2 sentences what I'm seeing from my side. Please, before I say anything else, help me understand what you are seeing from your side. What are you seeing and what's going on? What's leading to that? And what are you trying to achieve? Understand more about them as if you care about them. And instead of going off from conflict into confrontation, you go from conflict into cooperation. Okay, that's your goal. I think I have a better way for you to meet your goal and for me to also have my goal met so that we don't have to fight about this. Instead of doing it this way, could you maybe do it this way? Because that will fit your goal and I won't have this conflict anymore. Yeah, we can do that. Fantastic. That's how you bond with your partner. You care about them. You show them you care about them. Trust is only built in conflict. Trust isn't built during the happy fuzzy times. It's built by doing this. Have those conversations by asking more questions.
Love that. Trust is built through conflict. Trust is built where you think, oh no, this could end if I bring this up, and you bring it up, you get through it, and you go, oh, it didn't end. How about that? I love
There
that.
you go.
I love that.
The smarter you are, the more you are likely to fall for this trap of I will learn enough and change my mindset and I will feel better. Remember that we are relational beings. If you have a mouse who is freaked out and terrified of other mice, you could leave him alone in a glass cage forever and nothing is ever going to fix him or make him better. He's got to interact with other mice. He's got to bond with them. He has to go through problems with them. He has to desensitize with them. He has to feel better with them. He has to have a couple bumps and scrapes with them and then see that he's not going to die. It is all in relation where we actually do our healing. Everything else is just theoretical advanced work to try to get us to a place where we can have those interactions. If you can have the interactions, go have them. Low hanging fruit, those conversations, you need to have them. You will shift. And then from that perspective, you will gain more strength and then more conversations, easier, easier, easier. It's like going to the gym. You can't deadlift 500 pounds the first day, but as you build and build and build through lifting smaller amounts of weights, the amount of weight you can build increases. You're not going to have a personal perfect world record day one in your relationships. You're not supposed to. You can't. But start having conversations immediately. You're going to have so much more data, more than any book. You need to start doing that immediately. So today would be best if you can. Plan a conversation, go have it with low hanging fruit. There's a fantastic book from David Brooks called The Second Mountain, which talks about men climbing the first mountain in life of status, approval, fame, money, big cars, women with big tits, climbing that first mountain, and that's what we are all trained and programmed to do. But then we plunge into this valley afterward. We maybe lose our marriage, we lose our family, lose our money, lose those big tits, whatever, and we lose that and we plunge into the second valley and say, "What the hell is the purpose of my life?" And then we look up at the second mountain that we are meant to climb. And he calls it service to others. We might call it legacy, what you're crafting, what you're building. What is the actual purpose of your life? And it's not something that we can just sit there and kind of like, well, what am I for? We need to define what our legacy will be. Like when I said at 95, what is our legacy going to be? And then we backtrack from when I'm 95 years old, backtrack, what's my 20-year plan? What's my 10-year plan? 5-year plan, 1-year plan, 6-month plan, 90-day plan, 1-week plan, 1-day plan. You backtrack like that, and then you start asking yourself, who fits into my life, into that plan, and who doesn't? And what do I need to be living every single day to reach forward into those goals? You're going to really streamline your friends that you have. You're going to really streamline the women you bother dating or taking home. You're going to streamline your pain experience because your pain is either useful into that or the pain is distracting you from that. You need to cut out those things that are causing that pain. You're going to cut out the charity cases in your life you allow to live there. You're going to cut out the time vampires and the energy vampires, and you're going to really hone in on what's most important. So build your life in reverse and then live it forward, and that will carry you forward. And even if you've had a crash, a divorce, something horrible happened to you, you can make it mean something in the second half from the lessons you learn, maybe the lessons you pass on, or with the harder urgency you bring that in the second half. That all can be applied directly in. So build your plan, live it forward, and then align your relationships 100% to that.